I think you got to understand who's on the school board, who voted for the judge that's going to lock your ass up. How about all these people that's running around in your community that be up at 8:30 in the morning and you never see them because you roaming around at 3 in the afternoon? They got voted in. They go to the government office buildings that you don't know until you get in trouble.
You can't hold us back. You can't hold us back. You can't hold us back.
Hey folks, welcome to Be Woke Vote. I'm Roland Martin, host of Roland Martin Unfiltered. When I got the call to do this, there were a list of people who I said must be here to have this conversation. So I sent him a text and he said, hey, I'll be there. Even though I got a speech somewhere else, I will be there, have a conversation. Put your hands together, folks, and welcome Chuck D. My man.
When Brother Romo calls, I move.
Several years ago, you spoke in Chicago. Yeah. And I forgot it was in a church somewhere. It was in a church. And y'all, it was pretty funny sight seeing Chuck D in his t-shirt in the pulpit preaching. But you said, look, folks, most of the land in America has been purchased. Mm-hmm. But the only real estate that can never be purchased is in between your ears. Mm-hmm.
And they figuring that out right now. It's like the real estate of your mind. To stay woke, you got to kind of work. You got to work to be woke. I often get audacious and say, I was born woke, but you know what? You got to work up to that. So I cut it really simple and dry tack when it comes down to voting. I tell people, like, voting in the United States of America is as essential as washing your tail in the morning. Now, you ain't got to wash, but you can't run around and talk about things that stink. I mean, you don't have to wash. You don't have to brush your teeth. You don't have to do none of that. You don't have to vote. But when you start complaining that something stink in the air, you start looking at yourself.
You are absolutely well-read, always about constantly acquiring knowledge. And when people say, look, man, that stuff, that's just too much. That's just, I can't get involved with that. And I'm going, you do know that there is not a piece of your life that government in some way does not involve. I mean, I crack up with these conservatives who talk about
down to your name.
Everything. I mean, just if you actually sat down and said, okay, what part of my life, let me try to find something in my life that government does not have a part of. I can't think of a single thing. You can say, fine, they don't impact my marriage. Yes, they do, because you got to get that marriage license.
Yep. From the birth to the tomb. And if you're going to be here in the United States of America, whether you like it or not, you got to know about it. You got to know its history, because when somebody knows about you more than you know yourself, that's slavery. That's volunteer slavery. Yeah. So it's almost like double the education we got to pick up of what this place is all about, how it works, how it runs. That you got to think global and act local before you get into the hyperbole and all the pomp and circumstance of what people think the vote is. I think you got to understand who's on the school board, who voted for the judge that's going to lock your ass up. How about all these people that's running around in your community that be up at 8:30 in the morning and you never see them because you roaming around at 3 in the afternoon? They got voted in. They go to the government office buildings that you don't know until you get in trouble. So these things are important. Somebody got to read your local roadmap. And then you got to also see how the rest of the world operates. Mm-hmm. And I'm a firm believer, us black folk in the United States, if we don't connect to the diaspora, then we'll be slaves in the United States of America, because we don't know this jail cell enough for us to be free and say, this is our claim, this is our turf. Well, if you're going to claim it, know it.
Well, we saw that when Trump gets elected and all of these people on television, they're like, oh my God, we've never seen anything like this. And I'm going, what the hell are y'all talking about?
I know.
Black success in America has always been followed by white backlash. I said if you go through 245 years of slavery, you go through Reconstruction, then you get the Great Compromise of 1877, 92 years of Jim Crow.
Then you got the post-World War I, the 1919 rebellions.
Yeah.
I mean, but, you know, and a lot of this, you can even study the music of the last 100 years since it's documented and recording to find out how we got blacklashed.
Right.
And how we rebelled against it. And why Curtis Mayfield would say in 1965, people get ready. I mean, these records were purposeful. They were done.
It wasn't just a great beat.
Yeah,
No,
right.
he was saying something.
Yep.
When you listen to the OJs, put your hands together.
Yeah. Gamble and Huff songs is like, you know, getting you ready to recognize what you can't see.
It drives me crazy when I'm talking to folks and they're like, man, what? Okay, you keep bringing up all this old stuff as if, and they would say, but that stuff doesn't matter. And I said, really? So when former Governor Terry McCullough for Virginia, when he said, I'm gonna give pardons to 13,000 formerly incarcerated folks. And the Republicans said, no, you gotta do it one by one. You just can't do 13,000 at one time. And he was the first governor to go, do y'all know where this law came from? He said, 1902, a state legislator stood on the floor and said, we're gonna pass this law to keep the darkies from voting. All of these governors in Virginia had been using this law, tough on crime, you're not gonna right to vote, and the basis of it was to keep black folks from voting. And he was the first governor to say, no, we're gonna go back to why this law is on the books. And then people kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe that. And I'm like, so all you fools who are saying that something that was passed in 1902 has no impact in 2016, it did.
Right.
And they were just stunned. They were just stunned. I'm like, yes, we can go through numerous laws that are still on the books.
Yeah, we got to keep those stats as much as we keep the stats of our favorite football team. Keep the stats. Somebody got to keep the stats. Who's the stat keeper that turns these stats into facts in the practical real life? But we act exactly. It ain't like, all right, let Roland do it, or I'll flip on when I want to get woke,
right?
Because Roland got it covered. So we got to say that, all right, when you age up, your responsibility up. It ain't for us. It's for somebody else. It's really for those after us. It's for our kids and all those younger, that we have to be able to understand what's coming at us, because it's coming at us at a super accelerated rate. I mean, everybody got a computer attached to their hip.
Right.
Now, is it a toy or is it a tool? So when you go into it to do the toys and you like this all day, you know, you a bot, that's one thing, but what are you about? And it's going into it and say, okay, we got to keep watch on this. It's our security. It's somebody watching your back of the stats. And there's been so many games played. And the reason why we can't always jump on millennials and millennial disactivity is because these are different people, whether it's the love or hate, different people than it was 20 years ago. People have moved in and people have died off.
Right.
That's why you always got to keep it like this. You got to always keep the momentum of letting you know, and when you get that person say, oh, I heard this before. I said, you might have heard this before, but the next person ain't heard it at all. So it's a relentless upkeeping of watching your back.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have, and the other thing is, you don't have to get caught up in the game of, okay, but I didn't go to college, look, my mother and my father did not go to college. My dad worked for Amtrak when he got furloughed, so they were paying him to stay at the house. My dad watched 5 hours of news a day.
Right.
Read the paper, and I don't think people understand, he didn't read the paper. No, he read. You know how in the classified section, they had like a little hole, and you find this little small article in the bottom right-hand corner? Dog, he read that article.
He covered it.
So he would finish the Sunday paper Friday. Right. And I was like, bruh, the new Sunday paper about to come out. Because see, then I couldn't touch any part of the paper until he read the whole paper.
Well, to us folk, man, the newspaper in the past, for those that understood that they didn't want to get pushed down a flight of stairs of society, that newspaper was the cell phones. And people went through that newspaper that said, I won't be left behind. And even if they say, all right, I'm the one that's got to go through this newspaper, then I'm going to go to the barbershop. I'm going to be the one with the most knowledge going to let everybody know. And you know what? You don't get no debates if you come with this much information in the barbershop. Matter of fact, say, oh, that's OG. Yeah, you got to sit and listen to him.
Right. That's the equivalent of the brother who can dunk on you, who can block your shot,
Right.
and totally D you up and just dominate you.
Right.
In the barbershop, they kind of like say, bro, you don't want to mess with him, don't.
Yeah.
And then they'll warn everybody.
Right.
Like dudes start joining, they be like, say, bro, him different.
Right.
You want to make look? I've been there.
Right.
And because again, my deal is like in my family, my grandfather and my aunts and my uncles, dude, they used to have fierce debates.
Right.
Now, they didn't say kids can't participate, but
Right.
if you jump your ass in that conversation,
Yeah.
you better be able to ball.
Yeah.
Or they will kick your behind out and you be, but I'm a kid. No, you jump your ass in this conversation.
It's a get down mental foxhole you getting into, and it learns you.
Oh.
Notice I say don't teach you, it learns you. It learns you to come up out of there. When you talk to real folk and everyday folk, you make it practical, you go like this, and you ain't gotta prove nothing.
No.
And they could reject it, but they know that a OG like that know you're gonna come back anyway for it. It's jewels, it's fruit, and you're gonna come back and get your fruits and veggies from the OG that lets you know. If there is, and this is not a millennial accident, it's done on purpose, that they made the gadgets God, or they made the gadgets seem like God to tell us everything about everything and make you really search hard to find yourself. So people are all, this is the worldwide religion, regardless of what anybody
Right.
thinks. The electronic religion is the worldwide religion through the phone. So everybody's got their heads angled into that. So how do you do to make that instead of it breaking you? You have to be able to have the millennial audience and crowd at least make education not shameful.
Right.
And also make it say, all right, you know all this, so why are you just keeping it to yourself? Because you're afraid to be the smartest one. If somebody comes out and got their best gear on and all this, somebody might say, damn, they coming tight, you know, they kind of like, you know, coming right and real. But if you show off your mind, it's like, why are you showing off? You trying to make us seem stupid? And it was never like that. It's like, you letting us get these jewels now because you got our back. Because you can't give us no money. So the best way I got your back is letting you know the deal, and then I dip off, you come to get it when you want it, but I'm here for that.
Because there was a period where, look, smart was real sexy.
Smart was the deal.
I mean, you said it, and was it? But one of the things that's interesting when we talk about millennials or Gen X, Gen Y, because first of all, look, baby boomers said the same thing about Gen X folks.
Of course.
The exact same thing. So it's not, so I tell millennials, look, ain't nobody picking on you. It's a rites of passage for the previous generation to say, y'all don't know shit.
Right.
It's like,
culturally speaking and musically speaking, I always say that people my age and even my parents' age rejected the musics of their parents.
Right.
They didn't want to bring the blues. My parents didn't want to bring the blues into the house, and my grandparents would bring the blues in the house. But you know what? That's a generational thing.
Right.
Me as a culturalist and a historian and a musicologist says all this counts. Now, I ain't here to try to sell it on anybody, but we can't say it never existed.
Right.
And we can't get mad if somebody on the outside and the rest of the world pick up on it and know more about it and love it and you don't. We gotta kind of teach you to embrace what was already here. But this is a time where you have to stock as many people up as possible to challenge information. See, don't believe the hype. When we made that record, and it was partially from Noam Chomsky, because I went to school, had to do a thesis on this dude, and I said, well, it ain't I'm embracing any white history. It's not I'm embracing all this information because I want to, and I think it's a wonderful thing to drape myself in. You gotta stock information to challenge information, and the information, sometimes we call it BS. If you don't know nothing, how you gonna challenge something that's coming at you?
Right.
The most important thing is just like, know your damn county. Know your damn county. Know your town. Know your community on the voting tip. Know where your kids is going to school before they zone them out.
right.
Know that, all right, man, I done paid this money this time. I don't want to pay a damn bit of tax, but the tax I do pay is going to pay this much. It's like, yo, so at least know that much before you try to catch and say, well, I want to just follow the Super Bowl of politics. Yeah, it's like, yo, man, the local, sleepy, boring ass game in the Sandlot, you better be and figure out what that is.
Impacts you in a much greater way than everything. District attorneys. Finally, in the last 4 years, it hit many of the activists. Whoa, hold up. Shit, if we change the DA, hell, that's who's deciding whether we gonna arrest folks for marijuana or not. And so what then happened? Crash during Philadelphia. Aramis Ayala, the first black state's attorney in Florida. You had Kenneth Thompson, who passed away. Of course, Marilyn Mosby, of course, in Baltimore. Kim Foxx now in Cook County, Chicago. All of a sudden, Craig Watkins, who was the first DA and first black DA in all of Texas, who put in that basically the group that retested DNA, upwards of 30 cats freed because who were not guilty of the crime. And all of a sudden, folks like, oh, damn, I'm like, yes, as you said earlier, yes, those judges who nobody care about, that's who also are making those decisions. We hollering about somebody who's a House member. Well, hell, there's only 200,000 people in federal prison, the other 2 million in local and state.
This country was the right size in the prior centuries. For this next century, it might be bloated to not handle itself. It's like a 7'3" center who got a broken ankle. It's gonna take a long time for it to heal. I mean, this is one of the reasons they call it the United States, because it's so big, 2,000 by 3,000 continental miles. Then you got Hawaii and Alaska, 2 places it shouldn't have had, that they all of a sudden assumed, well, with all those other areas they imperialized. So with this large piece of land, yes, geographically it's beautiful. Probably one of the most beautiful from east to west, north to south. I've been on every road everywhere. To fix its infrastructure, man, there's a trillion conversations that gonna go on that, how do we fit in with it? How do we get a piece of it? And when we get a piece of it, what are we gonna do with it? So, I mean, even in this country, when you talk about conversations that just go over people's heads, like the bridge that collapsed in Minneapolis. Couple years ago. I mean, is that in the forefront when you drive on the road and the thing collapses on your car, and then all of a sudden it becomes the main concern because you had somebody in your family got killed by it? So there's so many things to talk about when you talk about this country, jurisdiction, who needs to run it, where we fit in it. If there ain't no job, somebody got to fix these things. Can we actually be in on some of that?
Right.
If you want to live in a place, you got to know about a place. At least we know, like, our people, when we're in the Caribbean, they gotta know about infrastructure. They know they culturally into the whoop and the music and the culture and all that and social different dynamics, but they also gotta figure out how we get food imported into this island.
Right.
How do we get something that we got worth something to export and bring money back? How do we get past a storm? You know, everybody just ain't in this bread and circus grown at 28 years old because they feel that, you know, I ain't got to be old and grown yet until I see I got to be, and that's got to be when I'm 35 or something like that. They got to figure out how to live in the rest of the world. Like, okay, you old enough, now figure out how you live as an adult and bring some people in and up. And in this country, I just think that sometimes, I mean, there's so many things that got to get handled that we have to figure out how we embrace the people that have the know-how and the knowledge, and also make them accountable that they got to share without rejection.
What I always say is, look, if you vote and your person doesn't win, you still a constituent. It's not like, okay, my person didn't win, so I'm gonna check back in 4 years. No. You still accountable to me as a constituent.
Just to add to the point, you know, the first year I voted, I was 20, 1980, and me, with my radical-minded self, I voted for Angela Davis for president of the United States. And
you wrote her in?
I wrote her in, yeah. And then it was Jimmy Carter versus
Jimmy Carter versus
Reagan. And then I realized that, okay, this is the World Series pimp game at the top. And I just realized the game of mathematics at the top. And then we got Ronald Wilson Reagan, which devastated our communities for an 8-year run. And then you had the 4 years of Bush. But it was the trickle-down factor that came out of that. I mean, it was devastating in the area I came from. But I then knew that the voting, yes, the trick game was going on, but you better really seriously try to understand that like they used to play the numbers back in the day. You got to figure out the numbers game.
It's a few more questions. We've talked a lot about education. Ice-T did a documentary on rap.
Art of Rap.
Art of Rap.
Yeah.
In that documentary, they showed how you lay out your raps. And I'm fascinated by it because somebody's thinking, oh man, check up this, they're talking. No, You were going through how you're constructing it, putting it together, and that was knowledge behind it. There was a process behind it that I was like, yo, I said, that was just amazing. The same thing with voting, but also what we do after the election. Exactly. If we don't go through that, learn the craft.
Right.
Not just, I'm gonna just go spout some stuff. No. Learn the craft, know how these things work. I pull these young cats who keep popping up on TV, and I'm like, you don't know what the hell your ass doing.
Wait, voting is just the uniform and the kicks of the game. That's just the uniform. Now you got a uniform and a jersey, and now you can play. After the vote, now the game is on. It's like, that's just the way it is. They don't have a lot of people like yourself that can break that down. And they don't magnify this because it behooves a lot of situations that have a dumb society, black, white, green, or whatever. You know, so the same old new tricks can be played.
Last thing, I've done with everybody. Somebody roll up on you. Chuck, I love your music, man. Please sign it, let me get a selfie. And you go, all right, I got 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds to tell this young cat, or middle age or older, why they must vote and must be engaged. Go.
You grown, you ain't a child. Voting is about like washing your tail in the morning. You ain't gotta do it, but don't go around saying something stink. And I tell them that, and that usually sticks with them.
That's 15 seconds, y'all. Chuck D. Always appreciate it, baby.
Chuck D, Public Enemy. 2020 is the next decade. Make sure you can see it clearly and be clear. Stay woke and be woke. Fight the power.
I'm not the world's smartest when it comes to politics. I'm the first to admit that. I'm not even the second or third, but I'm trying. And I think that that's really the message here. Get out and vote because it does matter. Your vote absolutely matters.
You can't hold us back. You can't hold us back. You can't hold us back.
Hey folks, Roland Martin here with BeWoke.vote. Well, of course, we're focused on 2018 midterm elections, trying to get you focused not just on the issues, but also on the importance of using the power you have to cast your ballot. Today, we'll be chatting with Ericka Alexander. She joins me right now, of course. You've seen her on television and in the movies, and normally she's the wild child, but today she gets to be a little bit more sedate, if you will, I think. What's happening?
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me.
All good. Well, first of all, so I say you broke out the proper attire.
You know, I tried, but I put a little spin on it. I put like a little ethnic spin on the flag.
I think one of the things is that white folks don't understand. Our view of the flag, even when you talk about democracy, when you talk about voting, is totally different than theirs because it's a different perspective when you talk about freedom. And here we are, 399 years since the first 20-odd Africans arrived in the United States in Virginia, and we still are trying to get all of the rights that we're supposed to have.
Right. I mean, when you think about it, it's a bit hypocritical. I mean, they were creating this flag and creating all of these laws with people being excluded from the laws that they were actually creating. So all men were not included in that. So it was it's a weird hypocrisy when you think about it.
Well, I was just arguing with someone. Actually, it wasn't quite an argument because I smacked him down real quick. On Twitter.
Was this physically?
Nah, but I should have done it physically.
Oh,
I would have.
I'm glad you didn't.
I made the point about that we've had 114 Supreme Court justices in America. 108 have been white men. I said, if you want to understand the history of America,
100%.
Right there, out of 114, 108 have been white men. Yeah. And he goes, well, things have been working out great. I said,
have they though?
Really? I was like, oh.
Was that when the smack happened?
Yeah,
that's when the smack would have happened for me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when the tweet went to all of my followers, so therefore they can get in on the action when I'm busy.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you just want to let them have it. It's like kind of like the beehive. for Beyonce. Sometimes you just don't want to get your hands dirty. It's like, you know what, this is too easy. I'm gonna just let y'all have this.
Oh yeah, and they're very good at handling.
I know they are.
But and again, it's a different perspective. Even when we talk about just this idea of voting, when you look at the efforts today with voter suppression, even the craziness with voter ID, people go, oh, but but ID is simple. I'm like, yeah, but once you start going underneath, where you have to have a certain type of ID, we must see the birth certificate, it must be raised,
right?
It must be a certain paperweight. I mean, look, these are barriers that are put in place.
Can I just be quite frank with you? I think a lot of people end up not voting or being politically active because a lot of people just don't understand the terms. And I think what happens a lot of times, people don't want to admit that they don't understand what these terms mean. And people talk about it, they talk about the electorate and gubernatorial and blah, blah, blah. You might as well be saying Oshkosh, bagosh, blah, 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 because people just don't get it.
Because also, we haven't had real civics, though.
Right.
I mean, we haven't had real, I'm talking about honest civics.
Exactly.
Not that fake stuff that actually exists in the classroom.
Right, and even with the fake stuff that exists in the classroom, because I took that, even with the fake stuff, everything is glossed over. And then all of a sudden you're supposed to know what everybody's talking about. And that's always been a problem for me, when I'm dealing with political conversations. I mostly listen. But when you're talking about actually taking action to change what's going on in the political climate, that's where you're arrested because you're just kind of like, well, I don't really know who to vote for because this person is speaking way over my head.
There was a sister in Fort Worth who served time in federal prison. She gets out. She votes. She doesn't realize that she lost her right to vote.
Right.
She gets prosecuted. She's sitting in a federal prison right now, not only for voter fraud, but also parole violation. So she's in there for 5 years. For simply casting a ballot. Now, we're going to spend an inordinate amount of dollars to lock her up for 5 years because she said, no one told me. And in fact, her probation officer testified that there was nothing, it wasn't like you got out and it was kind of like, oh, by the way, here's a sheet of paper, you can't vote.
Right.
She had no idea. 5 years she's sitting in federal prison right now in Texas.
And there are a lot of people, they don't know if they can. They don't know what to do, how to do it, where to do it. They get, all these documents and pamphlets in the mail, but they don't really understand how to dig through and figure it all out. So I think, the solution, because I'm all about solutions, is figuring out a way to reintroduce that into the school system. And I think, getting people together who are like-minded, right? If you don't know exactly what's happening, I think the first thing is don't be ashamed of that. Don't be ashamed to say, I don't really know what that means. I don't know what that term means. I don't know what this politician stands for. Even if everyone's talking about it, people are scared to get laughed at. Now, I'm the queen of no shame, as we know.
Yes, we know.
But I feel like a lot of people, like the ego gets in the way, right? And you don't want to be the one friend that looks stupid. I'm always looking stupid. But the thing is I'll ask questions. I'll say, you know what? I haven't watched TV this weekend. What happened? Talk to me. So my friends now know. They're like, oh, Ericka's come out from under her rock now. Let me explain to her. But I have to do that because I wouldn't know what's going on otherwise because it really does get confusing. And I get like, it's overwhelming and I get mind overload and I just have to shut everything off.
Look, I have other friends who send me a text and say, Roland, first, they go, is this true?
Right.
And then it's, okay, what's the real deal with this? How major is it? And I'm kind of like, okay, boom, 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 hit them right back. They're like, okay, cool. Then move on. And my deal is, I'm cool with that because for a lot of them, they want to be educated on them. They say, look, I trust you're going to give me the information, and then I can take it from there. Now, that's when I also got to have my stuff together because it can be running around quoting me going, now, Roland said, and then if it's crazy, like,
Exactly. Then, your Twitter followers are going to let you have it. But that's the thing. I think everybody needs 3 friends. You need that one friend that's not going to make you feel stupid because you say you don't know. The one friend who does know everything and can spout it out. I mean, like a Roland Martin Jr. And then you need that one friend to translate.
I make it easy. You don't need to translate.
Right. You do.
You do.
You do. But those friends that's always like, oh, yeah, well, the woman is and you're like, girl, I don't know what you're saying. Talk to me like I'm a 5th grader. Break it down to me in simplistic terms so I know exactly what you're saying and exactly what I'm going to do about it.
Okay, now somebody who's watching, they probably will say, oh, no, that's not basic. What they don't realize is we, as a journalist, we are actually trained. Newspapers are written for fifth graders. That's not a joke. We literally are written. Al Newhart, of course, who was the founder of USA Today, used to be the CEO of Gannett. He used to always hate reading George Will with the Washington Post. He said, I don't ever want to have to read a newspaper and have a dictionary right next to me. He said, make it plain for the people. So one of the things that I've always done is utilize television and radio and also social media to teach folks. I never thought about it that way until about a month before she died, Dr. Maya Angelou, when she was being honored at the National Portrait Gallery. I did an interview with her and she said, you're a teacher. She said, I watch you. You actually teach. And I was kind of like, okay, I never thought about it that way. But the reality is, to your point, the average person doesn't know. The reality is there is no affirmative right to vote in this country. There isn't. It was specifically set up that way. People think, oh no, I have a right to vote. Actually, you don't. There's nowhere in the Constitution that says you have an absolute right to vote. There are constitutional amendments that say you as a woman and me as an African American can't be denied the right to vote.
Right.
But there's nothing that says no, you absolutely have that right. We're going to probably have in the midterm elections more than half of the American population not cast a ballot.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But then I also have this other view where my deal is very simple. I use two versions. So I use one for mainstream television. I say vote or shut the hell up. But the other one really is vote or shut the fuck up.
Right.
Because I mean I can't because there's nothing worse for me than people who complain about a system. Because folks really don't understand that literally everything in our life is impacted by the ballot. There's nothing in our lives that isn't determined by politics some way or another.
Right.
If you were wearing something that was actually exported from another country, it had to go through a particular procedure that was established by government.
Right.
And that's also, I think, where people go, oh, no, that none of that stuff matters anything in my life, when, oh, yes, it does. It matters a hell of a whole lot.
Also, in terms of us having so many less people voting in this midterm elections, I think that can be shifted, even if it's just, a fefew percentage points by things like this.
Look,
us
that was
getting
a
together,
race.
us talking about it, because it's like double dutch. It's over. You're like, where do I jump in? How to jump in? You just try.
Right.
And even if you stop the ropes, you get back out and you try again. So
but it actually does matter. Right now, Republicans hold a 1-vote majority in the Virginia House of Delegates. And the only reason they hold that is because that was in the last election, that was a tie. It was decided by a coin flip.
Oh, wow.
They ended up the exact same number of votes.
Right.
And the coin flip, Republican wins the coin flip,
Wow.
keeps the seat, and otherwise the Democrats could have taken control of both chambers. A coin flip.
Right. Right.
So when somebody
and that
tells
would have changed
me
the complete face of everything after that.
my one vote is no big deal,
Right.
Obama wins North Carolina by 14,000 votes in 2008. That literally, if you break it down, the number of precincts, one per precinct.
Right.
One vote.
Right.
And folks go, oh, really? I'm going, yes.
Right.
You just don't understand how that can make the difference.
Yeah, it really, really does.
And also, I think when we look at a lot of these media institutions, they also are not talking about issues that folks actually care about. And I think that's also a huge deal. Are you talking about things that I care about and then putting it in a way where I understand how my life is impacted?
Right. And also the side of it that matters most to us. You could talk about the issues that are relevant to us, but you could skew it in a way that makes us sort of feel the way that you want us to feel about it. And that's what I think a lot of news outlets do as well. It's whatever the issue is, instead of making it plain, allowing us to make our own decision, or equally looking at both sides of it.
If you're Black or Latino, it's not like the other networks are doing a bang-up job, again, speaking to those issues that impact us in a much different way.
Right. Right.
First election you voted in, what was it?
Gosh. Do you want me to be completely honest?
No, I want you to lie. Yes.
Obama.
That was the first one? So that wasn't the first one you were eligible for.
Right.
So after 2008, did you then look at other elections, or did you only vote in president?
No, I started voting from there, and so I would do the midterms, and I would do the, I did start voting from that point on. I didn't vote in every single election from that point on, but I did start voting more regularly.
Growing up, was that a part of your upbringing?
No, it was not. I mean, religion was huge in my family. Education was huge in my family.
So y'all went, so you had to go to church.
Listen, we had to go to church, Sunday school, Bible study. We did everything church-based because both my parents were preachers.
Hold on. So both of your parents are preachers. Mm-hmm. So when they had souls to the polls.
Wait, not in my church.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we would have the odd candidate come to a service, but my church growing up wasn't very, politics meets religion heavy. I see that a lot now in my church that I go to now. Like, I mean, the politicians will come out on that one odd Sunday right before elections.
Oh yeah, they'll be there.
Oh, they know Jesus then. So I see it all the time now. But when I was growing up, no, that wasn't a big part of our upgrade.
So you think that's also an answer, because earlier you
100%.
said put it in the schools, but also I do believe, for me, the reason I see the value, so my parents worked elections. They volunteered for campaigns. They ran phone banks. That was a huge part of my upbringing.
And look at you now. And it's very interesting because I think that might be even bigger than the civics piece in schools. I mean, I think that at this point, having that in schools at least gives the children the opportunity to go home and ask their parents, so Mom, Dad, what is this? What do you think we should do about this? This is what I learned in school today. Let's talk about it. At least gives the children something to bring home and start a conversation with. However, if the parents start that for the children, then, then the children can go to school and say, hey, why am I not learning this here? Why don't I have a civics class? You know what I mean? And we'll have more Roland Martins running around here. I mean, the way that you were raised, the fact that your parents took you to the polls, the fact that they did not make it a choice for you, they actually exposed you to that in a way.
Then my dad watched about 5 hours of news a day. And I use this in speeches all the time, the importance of being aware of those things.
My parents were very, very concerned with making sure that we were well-rounded, but that's just not something that they were very exposed to. Which
is why connecting the dots matter. Because the thing is, you can't just take off that election because you say, I don't like either candidate, and people get caught up in this whole thing of, the lesser of two evils. Here's the reality. Somebody is going to win.
Right.
One or the other.
Right.
You better make a decision. Okay, I don't like neither one, but I like that one a lot less than that one.
Right.
You got to make that call.
Absolutely.
And not act as if it doesn't matter.
I think, again, going back to my 3 friends, finding people who are like-minded, finding people that you actually connect with, people who find the same things important that you find important, people whose conversations you enjoy having, right? So because of friendships like yours, that's what made me figure out that my vote did matter and that it was important for me to vote and get out there, even if I wasn't doing everything, perfectly, just trying and then learning from the mistakes, whatever mistakes that I made, and trying again and getting better the next time that I went out to vote or to speak about something, political. That's the start. That's the way that we do it, because we can't go back and undo, I can't go back in time and make myself be at the polls when I wasn't. So that's where the civics piece comes in. But I can start now. And that's what, I started when I started. And now I'm a part of more, political drives to get other people to vote. I'm not the world's smartest when it comes to politics. I'm the first to admit that. I'm not even the second or third. But I'm trying. And I think that's really the message here. Get out and vote because it does matter. Your vote absolutely matters.
Ericka Ash, thank you so very much. Again, folks, use your power. But most importantly, Election Day is the end of one process. What happens the day after the election is the beginning of another. We need you engaged. We need you involved. We need you informed. Register, vote, and then make sure the folks who you voted for do what they say they were going to do, because you are still a constituent. So silly.
Be like me. Be woke. Vote.
I love strong men. And strong men tell their daughters and tell women, you need to stand up and do what you need to do and don't back down.
You can't hold us back. You can't hold us back. You can't hold us back.
Hey folks, Roland Martin here, BeWoke.vote. Great conversations we have been having. My next guest, Ericka Alexander, is very much involved, not just in public policy, but also somebody who has been on the campaign trail. She's been a delegate. She's caught a hail from people as a result of her political choices, but she's always been one to step up and not be afraid to take a stand. Ericka Alexander, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm always glad to be with you, Roland.
Always
You are
good
the
to see
truth. Wherever you are is where it's at.
Well, somebody got to give him a little hell.
A little bit.
So we first met in Denver.
We sure did.
So I interviewed you after that for my book on the first, President Barack Obama's Road to the White House. Was that the first campaign you got that heavily involved in?
Most definitely. I mean, I'd done a few, like, knocking on doors for John Kerry's campaign, but that was just around Los Angeles. That was the first time that anybody had ever asked me to be that involved. They needed people, and I knew Mignon Moore, and there were many black women who were with her, and they asked me could I show up to South Carolina, and I did, and by the end of the evening, I was on a plane with Senator Clinton and President Clinton in Chelsea, and I stayed with them the whole time.
You experienced some real, Prince had a song called Black Sweat. I would say you experienced some serious black heat. Being a black woman supporting Hillary Clinton that heavily against Senator Barack Obama.
Yeah, which was bizarre to me. I mean, you know, I would happen to be in good company. Again, I was with Mignon Moore, I was Maya Angelou, I was with Ileana Van Zandt. But the thing is, and you have to have the courage of your convictions, I always liked Hillary Clinton. I was okay with it, but it was hard for other people to see me in that, I guess, in their posse. You know what, here's the weird thing. Up until that point, I'd never heard of Senator Obama. You know, I didn't know very much about him. I knew that he'd done a really great speech, and that he seemed to have a really great platform that matched hers. Mm-hmm. And I was a woman. I've been very pro-woman since I was a little girl. And so I've been a feminist, at least in my mind, for a long time. My father was one of the people, I think, who radicalized me, if there was any sort of radical movement. I love strong men. And strong men tell their daughters and tell women, you need to stand up and do what you need to do and don't back down. So that wasn't gonna make me back down just because other people were going the other way. I thought that we could all be for each other and still win. You
caught a lot of hell.
I was all right with it though. Look, if you're outside the mainstream, and I felt outside the mainstream my whole life, you can't, no one can push you aside any further. You can just hold your ground and say, listen, you may despise me, you may not understand my choice, but at least you can respect that I stood in it.
But did it hurt? Did it hurt to have people who look like you, people who you know, literally question your blackness?
Yes, but only a little bit. Because again, I'm from the mountains of Arizona. Both my parents were orphans. I lived in a hotel called Starlight off of Route 66 for the first 11 years of my life. All people have always questioned my blackness. When I came to Philadelphia, he was the most black people I had ever seen in my life. My father was Church of God in Christ preacher, Baptist. Kojic, and then he changed to Lutheran. And he did that because it was the 70s. Yeah, German Lutherans up in the mountains of Arizona.
Hey, hold on. He went from Kojic to German Lutherans?
Yeah, because he had 6 kids and they had health care. And he made that choice. He looked at it and thought he was basically an employee that got, offerings off of a plate. That's like getting tipped wages your whole life. And you living out of, his first part of his life, living out of trash cans. We dumpster dived. We would go into dumpsters and throw out cans and bottles and crush them. And that wasn't like, side money. That was our living money. That's how we lived. So when he got a chance, I think he saw a chance. He had his first heart attack at 35 years of age. He took it. Right at the 70s, they were open, I think, white hippie type people were open to listening to different types of pastors because of Martin Luther King and people sharing their pain and their love and their music all through, the first part of the 70s because the end of the 60s were so bad. So he was one of the preachers that I think caught, the wave, and they offered to make him a Lutheran pastor. They sent him to the Lutheran Theological Seminary in Philadelphia. I was there, and the minute I got there, the first time I went to Leeds Middle School, the first thing they said is I wasn't black enough. They said it, they say, why you talk so proper? Can I hold your pencil? I said, hold my pencil? No, I'm okay, I'm cool. I can hold my own pencil. I mean, they automatically thought that I couldn't be legitimate. But you know what? They didn't bother me past that. I think they saw that I could look them in the eye and I could, I didn't turn away, I didn't duck. I knew not to do that, but already I was outside the mainstream.
Growing up, what are your first memories of your parents voting and or their political activism?
Well, my father being a pastor, that's what you did. That's what he did. You'd go on reservations. You would be an advocate for the Navajos, the Hopis, for the Mexicans, for white people. He often was asked to come in and counsel and advise. Or I became political just seeing how he had to manage to make a living for his family. And one of the things he managed was to make sure that we were around people who made the laws. It was a company town. The Babbitts owned everything. Babbitt Ford, Babbitt this, Babbitt that. If you didn't know them, you didn't know anybody. To me, that's all politics. To be a pastor is to be political.
When you look at your background, does it give you a much different understanding, as far as you're concerned, of public policy today and how we are impacted by the power of voting?
Yes, because to me, local politics always seemed to, in my mind, match up with what I was seeing nationally. If you didn't find a way to know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, then you couldn't get anything done. And that's really what to be political is. That's what you're doing. You're building relationships. And, African Americans have had to, face up to the fact that in order to get anything done in this world, we have to work with the system that's there.
When you were knocking on doors for Kerry, when you were doing those things for Hillary Clinton, did you hear people say, girl, you're wasting your time. This won't solve anything?
Yes.
And how'd you respond to it?
I tried to find some common ground. A lot of people I didn't know had probably their life had changed around them and maybe they were just put off of voting. But I see now that life makes you jaded and it hurts you and it's painful. And we've had a lot of pain in this country. People were disappointed and they were saying, no, it's not gonna matter. What I didn't like is when young people said it. And I can understand if you've had a really difficult life and you're imagining the whole system's corrupted and why would it work for me? But there were people just lazy. And they were just regurgitating the things that they had heard on a radio or in the barbershop or something that somebody had told them. They hadn't thought about it. It's, one of the reasons why I think democracy is in danger is because people don't know how to think. So you can tell them anything. Trump can show up and say anything. And they can just go, oh yeah, he just called you stupid. Did you hear that? But he's for us. Really? You can't argue something like that. You got to keep moving. You got to go find people who can hear you. You got to go find people who are open to it.
But one of the things I think is interesting, so there's this fake quote that's been going around where Trump reportedly said, say this and say that, Republicans will believe anything, and they'll believe the lie because they're so clueless, blah, blah, blah. So he actually didn't say that, but he actually did it. Like, there's a dude right now who's walking down a street in LA who is saying all kind of stuff. If any of us walk past that person, we will say, baby, watch out, because he crazy. Yeah. He's saying all kind of stuff. That's literally Trump. But their deal is, but because he has this conviction, they say, well, he speaks his mind. I just sit there and I'm just kind of like,
yeah.
I'm confused.
That's the power of white male power and money. That's really, black people have said that for years, that white men, especially white men with money, were afforded all these passes and get out of jail free cards, and and people thought we were not only being paranoid, but but now they see it on display. They see it from their own people. Mm-hmm. And when I say their own people, meaning people who are in their own tax bracket and everything, acting a fool, kowtowing to this man. We saw him sit at a table while everybody basically told and said, oh yes, my liege, and this is what I think, and you're such a beautiful man. And we saw these people who have degrees, accomplishments, all these things just pile on. He has no words, he has nothing. He's just rich and white and male. And so if people want to see that power on display and then tell us that we're crazy, they can't do it anymore. That's the good news.
So how do we then get next generation voters to literally understand that they hold immense power, but it's sort of like having vast amount of oil in your soil and you have no idea how to even pump it? That to me is the biggest conundrum. Trying to get folks to understand that you take the number of people as in your group, there are more millennials than baby boomers. But the baby boomers vote. Presidential, gubernatorial, congressional, Senate, school board, county, city, you name it, that's what they do because they understand that's where the power lies.
Well, I think for one thing, baby boomers vote because they know that their parents, especially went through World War II and the Vietnam War, and they can remember at least those lessons through even viscerally or osmosis. I think that we have to stop apologizing. We have to start bragging. I think.
Explain that.
Everybody knows that I'm a Hillary Clinton girl, but I can tell you right now, if the one thing I could say about what she should have done is she should have told people what she accomplished. She should have been up front and told people, no. You see that thing? That's me. Oh yeah, in there? Yeah, me too.
Midterms are coming up, then of course you have 2020 presidential election. You talked about knocking on doors, you talked about being on HBCU campuses. You came upon, somebody came up to you, young woman, young man, and they like, look, Ericka, baby, I hear you, but I just don't think this thing makes any sense whatsoever. I just want to go on about my business and try to live my life. You got 30 seconds to explain to them why them registering, why them voting matters. What do you tell them?
I say I ain't got enough time.
No, that's all you got is 30
seconds. You got to vote
seconds.
for like your life depends upon it, because it does. I mean, if you like the way it's that's what's going on around you, and that's the way it is, then fine. But I said, if that's how it is, then sit it out. But whatever happens, then you own it. And if you own it, then you can't complain about it. That's what I tell them.
That was 19 seconds.
Well, listen, I don't know. I mean, you know what?
No.
I'm done with trying to convince people to try to vote for their, for their life. You have to run for your life. I'm gonna go try to get people who are open to it and lead them, because I don't know. I think maybe what's happened to me is that I got a little sort of, I got armor on. And when I see somebody who's still being belligerent and doesn't want to show up, and I was like, that's all you have to do. You can turn on that television. You can literally go and look at that game and make sure that you have that jersey on and show up and get that ticket. And make sure you get on time with the right amount of beer and you can't go and show up and vote 30 minutes or an hour out your day. I don't know what to say to you. You either going to help run it or they're going to run it for you.
They want marginalized groups historically to be asleep because the demographic numbers in America are changing before our very eyes, and they can't handle the shift. But as long as we are asleep, that they can maintain that power. If you're woke and then you're awake, then they see how they're gonna lose that power real quick.
Well, I hope they not forget hope. I'm done with hope. Fuck hope, fight. Fight.
As my frat brother Vertner Woodson Tandy said, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice.
I know that's right.
All right, Ericka, I appreciate
Roland
it.
Martin.
Thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for always being there. You got just one vote. Use it.
You gotta know that your vote is important. Come on, let's make it easy for you. We need you.
You can't hold us back. You can't hold us back. You can't hold us back.
Roland Martin here with Be Woke Vote. Certainly glad to have you here. There are very few cities that when you say the name of that city, it evokes politics. I don't think there's any other city in America that does that other than the city of Chicago. And my next guest, of course, she hails from the Windy City. And joining us right now is Lisa Ray. What's happening?
What's going on?
You all good?
I am.
All right.
Thanks for that.
For you, what do you recall the first time you voted? When was it?
Well, let me say this. I've always voted because my mama made me to. But the first time I really gave a damn, honestly, Clinton.
Bill Clinton.
Yep.
92.
Yep.
So
I used to vote for who my mama voted for.
So growing up, that was practice. She voted. Did you ever go to the polls with her?
Yeah.
When she voted?
She would make me sit and watch the different speeches that they would have throughout the time. And then I assume as a kid, I would go in and out of, what is this and why, you know, da-da-da-da kind of thing. And as I got older, she wanted to make sure that my vote counted. So it was like, come on. And it was like, okay. But it wasn't until Bill Clinton got into office and really, until Obama got into office, till I really started being more educated about the process and how it helps and how it works and how my voice is really heard through my vote. Because he actually tackled social media and used that to get to us in a way that spoke. He spoke our language. And it wasn't just and only because he was a black man running for president, but I remember hearing his speeches and understanding what he was saying. And it wasn't foreign to me, and I didn't have to break it down or look in the dictionary or feel ignorant because I didn't know what he was saying. Yeah, maybe some of the words was kind of too big, you know, but overall, I was like, I get the message here. I understand here. And I'm gonna tell you this story too. My first piece of property that I bought back in Chicago had a condo. My tax bill came. And I would look and it said, you know, you paying taxes on the library and the fire department. And I kept saying, I ain't never had no fire. I don't need the fire department. and I quit going to the library a long time ago. I don't need this, you know. And my mother said, girl, don't be no damn fool. That's what she said, you know. And then for me, it was like, right. This is where our tax dollars go to. This is how our buildings, the public buildings, are paid for. Then that is what made me go, oh, girl, learn more. Find out where your money's going. But it wasn't until I became independent and they started messing with my money that I really cared.
Yeah, but the key there though is not just messing with your money. You were an owner. This is what I tell people all the time. In America, they care about homeowners. When you're renting, it's a whole different conversation because you're transient. You can come and go. But the person who owns, their deal is like, no. I want this to be of value, so I'm gonna need that cleaned up. I'm gonna need that looking good. It's a different attitude politically how they treat people who own versus people who rent.
I learned that too.
And unfortunately, that's the case. And then people then wonder, well, how did this happen? How did this happen? It's because, and I hate to use the word ignorant because people hear that, they go, oh my God, how dare you call me ignorant? But when we are not fully aware, that's how we get taken.
Yeah, but you have to have something that has taken place that you care about to be able to stand for. Because like you said, those renters, they don't know. So really, they're walking around oblivious because their focus ain't that. Their focus is where's the next place that they can be transient at? Where's the next place that I can rent at? They're not even thinking about owning until and when they do, then things change. And those are the people that we need to go, hey, we're trying to talk to you. We got to talk to those people. We have to sit down and have conversations like this so when they see somebody that they can relate to, and it's like, oh, let me see what Lisa Ray is talking about. Let me see what Tiny's talking about. Let me see what Roland is saying. Why don't we hit them in ways in which that we know it will affect them? And really, that is one of the reasons why I'm using my platform as an artist, as an actress, to be able to speak to the people that can relate to Lisa Ray. That whatever I'm learning, and whenever I'm learning it, I'm able to share it with someone because no one did for me and with me.
I think part of the issue for us these days is that we get so caught up in, it has to be this way for folks to be aware of what's going on in politics. As opposed to saying, no. I've got to figure out multiple ways to communicate with people so they understand it.
And I'll tell you this, and I always say this, I go, okay, once we march, once we petition, now what? Because I still don't know what's going on. Not me personally, but people. Okay, I'll stand with you, but What else? And I often now think, who is our voice today? After the Jesse Jacksons, after you, after Reverend Al Sharpton, who? Who will the millennials have to represent them?
When we think about organization, we're seeing now a lot of black women not waiting for somebody to say, hey, we want y'all help. We're seeing Adrienne Shropshire, we're seeing DeWanna Watson, we're seeing Stephanie James, we're seeing Latasha Brown, we're seeing these sisters all across the country. They're raising money, they are organizing, mobilizing, they're using social media. They are reaching and touching a new generation saying, look, ain't nobody gonna save us but us. And so it's time for us to actually mobilize.
I think it's time for women to stand up. I think behind a powerful man is also a powerful woman. I think and believe in being evenly yoked, and I believe in teamwork makes the dream work. So you can't do it by yourself, and it's been proven. So now we have to stand up. We have to, being a new millennial woman, you got to be able to be independent. So if you're independent and you're standing by yourself, you have to mobilize each other and say, okay, I need you, and us together is more powerful together. I think that that's important, and one of the reasons why even sitting here is because I'm utilizing what I know. I'm being able to speak about something that I used to didn't do, that I can say, yeah, that was me, but it's okay now because I know better now, and you can too. I'm able to say that so they can relate to what I'm saying, so I can capture their attention and be able to knock on their door and say, hey, you with me? And now they feel more apt to pay attention and more apt to be able to go out there and say, oh, well, just maybe, because she said, and I'm a fan of hers, so the connection is, well, okay, what do I have to lose? Because sitting at home is what you're losing out on. And a lot of them don't even know how important the vote is. It's like, well, you know what, if I don't, ain't nobody gonna miss my vote. Until you have a 50-50 share and it's 49 and 51 and you're like, then you gotta feel like an ASS and go, see.
Earlier you talked about not being afraid to ask somebody when you don't know. How would you encourage somebody who says, Lisa Ray, look, I'm afraid to ask, I don't want to feel stupid. How would you encourage them to say, it's okay to expand your horizons and open your mind to receive new information?
Let me take that person's hand and let me be the person, the leader. I'll ask you a question for you. You just take notes for me. Therefore, we got it. Let's find a friend then that can ask. Let's Google, let's look it up, let's read, let's pay attention to the news. Let's, because there's other options. You don't have to be embarrassed by being in the forefront and saying, okay, because you might not even know what to ask. You may know that you're just confused and you don't know anything. And so that's scary within itself, because if you're in a room and they're speaking and you're going, and you know nothing, it's no question that's going to come to your mind at all. But you got to be able to say, what did he just say? And grab a little something and hold on to that one thing and be able to build off of that. We have to be able to encourage our people to do so. But again, though, it's the temperature of how we deal with each other. We are the ones that make each other feel crazy and stupid and uneducated. We do that to each other. So, yeah, I could feel that way. But how I do it, because I get nervous energy sometimes. And then I get funny when I'm nervous. So it's almost like, girl, I don't know anything about that, but what is it? Tell me. Because I be saying, because for real, I don't. For real, you know what I mean? And then they go, you do go. It's like, nah, girl, I don't. Right now, everybody wants things to be easy because we've had a hardship for a long time, and it's a lot going on right about now. You know what I mean? So it's hard to stay encouraged in the climate that we're in. If we allow things to be fun and feel light, then maybe we can get more people on board. But it's almost like when you make it too serious and too politickish, it's like, well, I'm out of my league automatically, so I'm gonna turn the channel or I'm gonna turn my back. Put somebody up there where I feel like it'll make me laugh. Right. Tell the comedians to start joking about the politics so I can laugh at what's going on too, but then the message is still there. Let's find other ways to do this thing.
Earlier, you talked about seeing that tax bill and you like, where is my money going? Library and fire. What are the three things you care about the most that you want to see changed?
Elderly, dealing with them. You know, when you're young, you just do not think the same way when you get mature. The other day I was driving and I saw one of the older ladies, and she had 2 bags and she was moving awfully slow. And I stopped and I said, ma'am, I want to take you to where you're going. I said, and you can hold my license. I'm not crazy and I'm not going to do anything to you, but I want to take you the way you're going. She said, baby, bless you. And the entire time that she got in my truck, I was in complete tears. Because I could only think about my mother. And would anybody stop now to help my mother? We have no regard for people anymore. And it's sad. Things are changing so much, and they're taking things into robots or computers and taking the human out of the job environment. Well, now we're not communicating with each other. It's just a machine. So there's no human touch anymore that brings about emotion and compassion. The elderly. Health. I want everybody to be able to have health care, because as surely as we're going to be on this earth, it is too much that is endangering us, from the food that we eat to the air that we breathe. They are killing us. So we're going to be sick. So if it's not your time, and if you went to school to be a doctor, why is it so much about the money? Why can't you see this person came through the emergency room and they are deadly sick, and you got the power to be able to help them, but you won't because the insurance didn't clear? What kind of doctor are you? Why did you go to school anyway?
To the elderly, we got health care. Number 3.
Education. Education is so much that's being taken away from our school system. They took out music, physical ed. Teach them how to finance their home. Teach them how to change a tire. Teach them how to balance a checkbook. Teach them life skills. Equip them with those things, so when they go to the next level is responsible for giving them the next level to level up.
Lisa Wright, good chat with you.
Thank you so much. Be like me. Be woke. Vote.